Sons of Lilith, a fairy tale, a novel in the Moonwatch universe, by adeshile. Book blurb: he fights for redemption, but his rage may destroy everything, or leave him adrift forever. Ripley was once a devout, loving family man, a man of faith who devoted himself to his work and his loved ones. But after the change, he became something far darker, cursed with the sanguine fury, an uncontrollable rage that haunts his every step as a vampire. Now, he's desperate for atonement, clinging to the hope that there is still redemption for the horrors he's committed. Caught between his violent instincts and the desire to save the weak and innocent, Ripley also faces another temptation: to let the overwhelming sense of purposelessness carry him into oblivion. Trying to reconcile the remnants of his humanity with the monster he's become, he walks among people who remain blissfully unaware of the danger he poses. But when his brotherhood of supernatural misfits are called to a mission far more dangerous than any they've faced before, Ripley is thrust into a conflict that threatens them all. In the shadows, something ancient and powerful stirs, waiting to be unleashed. The choice before Ripley is clear: surrender to the monster within or fight for those who still have a chance at salvation. Either path could break him. This is a sample copy containing the first 6 chapters. This is a mature, dark urban fantasy story with complex characters. There are no sparkling vampires here. Prologue: Jonathan cowered before the hulking man, a dominating figure looming over him, axe and shield in hand. In Jonathan's hundreds of years as a vampire, he had forgotten many things. Tonight, in his opulent bedchambers, a long-lost memory returned to him. Better said, a sensation. It was the feeling of fear. He had seen fear in the eyes of countless lives: the widening of the eyes, the slacking of the jaw, the ever-so-tasteful gasp, or the common, everyday, bottom-shelf scream. He imbibed on the sounds and tastes to drunkenness. He indulged in the hunt. In his younger years, he had feasted on villagers and nobles alike. His hunger was unbound. Jonathan had enjoyed every savory bit of it. Blood, power, riches, it was all his. No simple man or woman could withstand him. They all succumbed with a hilarious bleating cry. Some even pleaded for their lives, a request which Jonathan found humorous for its pure absurdity. Does the wolf grant the sheep safe passage? No, never. They'd eat you whole while you were still alive. But now, Jonathan understood their plea. He remembered the all-consuming feeling of fear, the frantic urge to fight or flee. Jonathan had tried to fight. Jonathan's blood magic had failed, leaving only small marks on the beast's shield. Thea had betrayed him, too, advising him that House Smiev no longer cared for his services. And after all Jonathan had done for them. But the worst of it was that there was nowhere to escape. His mansion had been overrun, the guards killed. He himself was cornered in his own bedroom, hunched over the woman he just drained, with only one exit, through the man who came to end him. And Jonathan couldn't beat this Goliath, a dark knight from another era, a monster wielding axe and shield in an age of guns and tech. A creature that would hunt his own kind. There would be no talking him out of it, no bribing him, no requests of mercy, and that realization was the final pang of fear to stake Jonathan's heart. You monster. Monster isn't even a suitable word for a thing like you, Jonathan said, venom lacing his words. Jonathan was babbling now. Anger and fear overwhelmed him. Anger at being stuck in such a miserable state, and fear of the end. He was a snake, terrifying in nature, but now biting out of sheer defense, wanting to live one more day, to slither away, fill his belly, and rest under the glow of the moonlight, like he'd done so many times before. But Jonathan had come across a mongoose of a man. The man dressed in black tactical gear laughed. It was a deep and resonating laugh, like the grumble of a lion, and then it was gone. His tone was serious and his deep volume filled the spacious room. I am Knightley, the destroyer, first of the Sons of Lilith. It was the statement of a warrior who'd come to deliver justice. The words landed hard. Jonathan had been convicted of something terrible and awaited judgment. He knew it. Jonathan's eyes darted uncontrollably for an exit. He felt like the rabbit before the wolf. Words rushed out of him, still venomous to the ear, but lacking any potency. For what was the bite of a cobra to a mongoose, but an insufferable itch? Finally, Jonathan felt why so many people begged at the end of their lives. That sense of powerlessness and dread needed somewhere to go. The fear was just too much, too uncontainable. You're worse than a monster. At least I could persuade a monster. You must come from the depths of hell. You damned dem. You are my enemy. He reared back with his axe. And now you shall know my fury. And unlike all the people Jonathan had fed on over the centuries, he couldn't even muster the courage to put his hands up against the coming blow. Maybe it was because Jonathan knew the blade nullified his healing abilities, like a stake to the heart. Maybe it was because he knew that the Sons of Lilith would never let him leave his mansion alive, that chance had come and gone. Or maybe it was just because he, Jonathan, was a coward, a simple creature who had been blinded by his own power long, long ago. It didn't matter now. The verdict had been made, and Jonathan was cleaved in two. Chapter 1. Do you know what it feels like to have thoughts that never let you rest? These putrid things shamble but never sleep. Instead, they wait. They wait for that one moment when your attention slips and your mind is distracted. Before you know it, they have a hold of you by the ankles, plunging you into the depths of despair and anguish. And by the time you've realized it, they've already consumed you from the inside out. These never-dying thoughts were in my mind, grunting, moaning, and stealing away my peace. How? Distraction. The noise of this overcrowded coffee shop had played enough of a distraction for these old thoughts to slip past my mental barricades. Thoughts with no answer. The thoughts I asked myself time and time again. What separates a man from a beast from a monster, or a demon from an angel? Did it even matter? I didn't have an answer. And what about time? Time sure didn't matter for me. Not anymore. Not since that bastard vampire bit me, turned me. Now I was a destroyer of man and monster. How long has it been? 20 or so years. After so many endless nights and with a face that refuses to age, I've lost track. The idea rolled over me like a discomforting wave I wanted to get out of. I adjusted my position in my chair, feeling suddenly heavier. To my fortune, the chair was large enough to carry my 280-pound body, with no fear of collapsing. It stood wide, sturdy, and was built in an era where craftsmanship still mattered. It was my favorite chair in this entire coffee shop. It might as well have my name on it, Ripley Riley. If I could take it home, learn how to reproduce it in my workshop, then I'd put my code name on the replica, Knightley, the Destroyer, first of the Sons of Lilith. The chair was a woodworker's masterpiece, and comfortable to boot. It was at least one thing that gave me comfort. Noting its craftsmanship helped dampen down some of the roaming thoughts, and it helped push back some of my growing irritation at all the boisterous youth around me, their loud noise and disturbance. Just like the lasting remark of that vampire, I took out who thought I was worse of a monster than he. Before the crowds formed, I had lucked up in getting this seat. Or I should say, I was lucky that the little barista, Gwen, had kept it hidden for me. She even set aside this small table in the front corner of the coffee shop, all so that I could play in peace, a little calm and quiet before I had to play in tonight's show. If I were facing foot traffic, I'd be able to see all the ongoings of Madaview mugs. From here, I would be able to see the register, the barista's workstation, and a large board listing all the drinks served at Madaview mugs, except for the hidden menu. That was for regulars. I'm sure if I wasn't trying to block out my surroundings, I'd catch a glimpse of Gwen's smile. She did that a lot. Come to think of it, Gwen would throw a smile my way, whether or not she thought I was looking. But even more when I wasn't. The "All Are Welcome" sign ratted her out every time. The sign hung from the ceiling, facing inward, with its back against the large storefront window. The wooden frame and words were old. The chain needed to be replaced and the white paint redone. I could do that. Thought of it several times in the past. But there was just a special quality that age gave the old frame, and I appreciated the sign's message. I didn't want to see it go down. The sign's frame not only enclosed the wooden message, but it also held a mirror plate that rested right behind the words. I've daydreamed many times from this seat. My vision would eventually shift to the sign, and I'd see a reflection of Gwen smiling at me. Even though my back was turned, I'd probably never tell her. She'd turned red, I'm sure. It'd be cute and a great way to flirt. But that wasn't my aim. Gwen was kind, but I didn't want to tread into the romantic world. Beast, monster, man, whatever, I had enough self-knowledge to know that would not be a great situation. I had problems, Not just the I am deathly allergic to the sun kind, either. Even if I did want to bring her inviting smiles, I definitely didn't want to do that tonight with the coffee shop as busy as it was. Nor did I want to see whoever came in and out of the coffee shop, which I would if I turned to face her as she was working the register tonight. I sat with my back to the ongoings of the coffee shop despite the advice of my friends, though friends was not the best word to use for them. They were more family than friends, a ragtag group of little heathens, and all members of the Sons of Lilith. We saved lives and kicked ass. We all had supernatural abilities, combat skills, and a penchant for danger. However, despite knowing how to handle myself, none of them liked that I exposed my back to danger. My seating position left my back open to the comings and goings through the front door. Sarah, the proverbial angel of our little group of misfit toys, had mentioned it more than once. She wasn't one for talking much. The point that she said anything, and more than once, was enough for me to know that she didn't like it. Azora, the sweetheart that she was, always warned me that weapons couldn't just pass through me without harm, as they did for her. And Morrigan, well, Morrigan was a witch, literally, and she took no shit. She said if I survived a rear assault, she'd brew me a potion. It would be the worst potion I ever tasted on account of my willful negligence and unnecessary processing, but she'd make sure I had it. She'd also let me know she kept the good-tasting potions for people who got hurt making smart decisions. What a witch. But old man Moses understood. He didn't harass me about it. He asked the others to let me do my own thing. Moses had a remarkable voice. I didn't know if it was by chance or divine wisdom, but I could see and hear him rendering the 10 Commandments, up there on a mountaintop, invoking all the power of will. He had to impart the ways of living onto an impious, chaotic mass of people, but Moses never raised his voice. Everything was always said with a gentle politeness, tempered with the calm of wisdom. That tone showed when he addressed the rest of our group, back at our base. In his low-pitched, measured, and knowing voice, he told them, let him be. Sometimes a person looks for trouble to prove that they're still alive. That statement quieted them. It even stopped other family members from hounding me about it. I would have hoped that would have been the end of it, but Moses was Moses. He wouldn't pester me about my personal choices. That's not how he ran things. That's not how he kept a group of mixed-match supernatural creatures together, by letting them live their own lives and learning from their actions. But he would not leave me without something to think about, either. After he was done talking to them, he turned those seasoned eyes and that powerful voice on me. It is often not the conflict we seek recklessly that gives us the lesson we need, though full of lessons it may be. Often it is the challenge we weren't expecting, the challenge that comes out of nowhere and asks the best of us, that pulls from someplace deep within. If we dare embrace that challenge earnestly, we meet our true selves. We struggle, we learn, we grow, and we find ourselves truly living. Don't let yourself die before you truly live. It was weighty. Moses was like that, either asking questions you didn't have answers to or making a comment that you didn't quite get. The outcome was always the same. You should give his words some thought, or not. He didn't force you to listen, but I could only imagine a fool ignoring him, disagreeing with him. Sure, run about before giving what he said good consideration. Absolutely. I could count the times I did, but ignore entirely. Never. And yet here I was, trying to think through things, my back turned to the ever-growing noise, thumbing through my Bible, and my guitar neatly pushed up against the wall in front of me, protected by its gig bag. Though I didn't care too much for the small table, I appreciated the little nook I had all to myself and its chair. The chair was from another era and exquisitely designed, a perfect match for my Bible, though my Bible was newer. The chair, with its organic inward curving legs, arms, partially open back and red seat, it was suited for a church or a castle's dining hall, not a local coffee shop. The bottoms of its feet curved in like a scroll, and the front of those feet had the serrated leaf pattern of an acanthus leaf. I knew nothing about that leaf until I tried to craft the chair in my wood, not from memory. I had several pictures that Ophelia took on her phone. She had printed them out for me. They were surprisingly good for a phone. I had tried several times to craft the chair. I couldn't get its design down and had to ask Moses what type of plant it was. I figured he'd know. He did. Moses told me it was the acanthus leaf which stood for immortality in several Mediterranean cultures, yet Christianity associated it with punishment and sin, and the Romans just threw it on all of their columns later on. He told me more about it, but it didn't stick. Something about good luck. At the time, I was more taken aback by its meaning, and now I was sitting in it, with all its plant and cockleshell designs expertly engraved in it, trying to read a Bible that looked designed with the same love of craftsmanship. My Bible, with its hazelnut-colored cover, gold-leafed pages, and worn edges, was beautiful. It was also well used. When I flipped through it, the pages opened to certain books, like Job, Proverbs and Psalms, like pathways built up over time from the endless marching of feet. The ease of opening to these sections recorded my ongoing search for purpose and forgiveness. How long have I searched for meaning, for answers? I had done so when I was human, but how much more now since I've been turned? My life once comprised of work, taking care of my son, and church, when I wasn't working overtime. My religious life has given me so much meaning. What did it mean for me now? I was an abomination, a handsome fucking abomination, but an abomination still. I don't think I'd burn up if I entered a church proper, but I sure wasn't going to try it. What could my faith give me when I was turned into something I never wanted to be, and had done things I cannot forget nor forgive? The thoughts were back again. They were heavy, pulling me down like an inescapable vortex. I hadn't planned to be thinking this deeply. I came to Madhavi Muggs to play my guitar, in peace, before our show tonight, but the rising volume, and the distracting antics of young people made it impossible to hear my own playing. College students, who were loud enough to drown out everything around them. It irritated me, along with something else I couldn't place a finger on. Regardless, playing my guitar in peace wasn't going to happen, so my mind wandered, pulled into the inky abyss within. It was a cold place, void of light or direction, where a desperate hope lingered, that I'd atoned for the horrors committed after the change, and a plea that God might still hear my prayers. I needed to refocus. I flipped open my Bible, thumbed through, landed on the Book of Ecclesiastes, and read. I need something, a sign, direction. I prayed that I'd find some meaning that could guide me, something, anything that could help. My reading was haphazard, focus split, and irritation smoldering. Sudden outburst of laughter, squeals of excitement, and other unnecessary noises from the crowd distracted me. Every time I tried to read, I found only bleak lines in my jumbled, sporadic read. The reoccurring themes of triviality and inconsequence in the text smashed my spirits like a body blow, doubling me over. Was this the message? It couldn't be, could it? I tried to focus again. My attention snapped to a scream. Amongst the ever-growing number were two girls wearing matching pink t-shirts. I guess they were retro. The shirts were numbered 1984 in gold script. I assumed they didn't mean the book. In place of Orwell's iconic book cover, with its watchful eye, was the image of some popular blonde girl. What was her name? Taylor Smith's. Whoever she was, her presence swayed more minds than a siren. I guess Big Sister was watching. I turned back to my Bible, more flustered than I was. I searched Ecclesiastes again and was met with the same old phrase, "It's all just chasing after the wind." That was the answer. So, it's all just chasing after the wind under the sun? Huh, damn, ain't that a grand? I chuckled, the taste of bitterness on my tongue. No one heard me. No one saw the fleeting mirth lifting my cheeks. No one would see how hollow the smile was, nor how weak its support was. My smile was like a tent propped up by willow branches, fragile, too weak to hold any weight, and bound to fail. The sound of my pitiful chuckle, my plea to a God who no longer listened, was consumed by the over-enthusiastic chitter-chatter of late-night coffee drinkers. Their merry-filled, ignorant debauchery clashed with my want for purpose. Here they were, having already poisoned themselves by drinking to excess, and now they brought their wanton noise too. Madhavi Muggs was usually a haven, with its vintage wooden tables, potted plants, and hanging mugs that welcomed regulars. But tonight, it had turned chaotic, overrun by a crowd that was never invited. These people, if you'd call them that at this point, were not welcomed guests. They were annoyances, blabbing loudly on their phones, sitting on tables, standing in the way of others trying to get by. and the never-ending ding of social media raking their brains and my attention. It was Friday night on a 4th of July weekend. The on and off rainstorms had cancelled several outdoor events and family gatherings, pushing people to find another means of celebration. They mobbed on at first to get out of the rain. Dresses too short, jeans too nice, shoes too expensive, everyone making shit poor decisions. They were a mess. It's not like the forecast hadn't called for this storm. The weather has been chaotic, with storms projected for Eldwood City for weeks, but always just reaching Whistlecombe Woods on the outskirts of town. But we had been warned, I guess. Despite every warning they could give, people just didn't believe it anymore. Too many false starts, I guess. Thus, the mob descended upon all the restaurants, and then all the dance clubs and bars, all in an attempt to get out of the rain that came. Like any drunk mob, the liquid courage eventually took the legs out from underneath them. Restaurants bust them out for their noise, I was sure. Their shambling feet couldn't carry them bar hopping anymore. And you can't stay at a dance club if you can't even stand, having nothing else to do but being left with a hunger to have fun. They descended into a virtual horde of zombies. Their numbers overwhelmed smaller places like this, my favorite coffee shop, where the staff were too nice to kick them out, though the rain had died down hours ago. Madavi Mugs, a simple, friendly craft coffee shop with a small food selection, usually did well with large groups. Their staff were responsive, would remember your name, and find where you were seated to hand you your order. In time, regulars even earned their own specialized mugs. Madavi Mugs even had additional staff for the busy shifts, like tonight. But the floodgates were opened for this moonrise, and they just weren't ready. The whirl of the espresso machines hadn't stopped since the crowds arrived, yet the chaos muted even that sound. I couldn't even soothe myself by playing my classical guitar, my usual go-to for stress relief and focus. Gwen and the rest of the staff always enjoyed it, and it had become my shtick. Show up, play, lift everyone's mood. But not in this wall of noise. The table I sat at tilted forward, on the edge of toppling over. I shot my arms up in surprise. The table righted itself, landing hard on its base. I hadn't realized it, but I had been sitting on the edge of my seat and leaning hard on the table. The balls of my feet were springy, ready to go into action. My breath was shallow, and there was a warmth in the pit of my belly. It swirled around first, like a beer, then it burned like a vodka, heating me up from the inside. Hotter and hotter it grew, like a miniature inferno. This wasn't the effect of alcohol, nor of some late-night, level 10 spicy Thai food. This was something all too sinister. It was the sanguine fury. The fury was a rage that could overcome a vampire when our emotions ran rampant, or the hunger was left unchecked. And I was always at the cusp of both. It was a natural response, despite its wickedness. It was like the body prioritizing heat to the core, when in extreme cold, leading frostbite in the limbs. This just prioritizes aggression beyond all else, and when it got into full swing, it was hard to back down. Even Pompeys, our fruit-drinking cousins, could be inflicted. However, they often were better at handling it. I took several breaths, trying to still myself. I had practiced lowering the fury, lots and lots of practice, but something was stirring it. The noise shouldn't bother me as much as it did. I knew these kids were being obnoxious, but I'm good at handling that stuff normally. Ophelia, or Squirt, as I like to call her, had helped me with that. There was something else going on. It had to do with the sound that I hadn't singled out. There was a particular noise, like a gnat buzzing past my ear. It came and went. Lost in my thoughts and reading, I had ignored it, chalked it up to everything else that was going on, but I could hear it now. I closed my eyes and let my ears and nose do the walking. In a room this size, I could find it. Even with this crowd, there were some perks to balance my tan-less existence. Improved senses were one of them, especially when the fury was nipping at my mind. I turned my head to the register as I caught hold of the buzzing sound again. I smelled a light, familiar sweet scent. I breathed in long and hard, filtering the other smells until I detected just two. It took me a moment, but I registered it. It was Gwen. Everyone has a scent when they sweat because of the mixing of body oils. Hers was always pleasant for me, but it was different and more than normal. Something was wrong. and nearest to her was an overwhelming smell of cheap whiskey mixed with aged onions. My attention now pointed in the right direction. My ears picked up on the gnat sound. "Listen, little bitch, I told you I need my pumpkin spice now." "What? You don't understand English? Or does this place not pay people good enough to have brains?" "And what's with the fucking service?" the male voice said. That's all I heard as I got up from my table. The rest was washed out by the burning blood in my ears that was drumming out an impressive beat. It didn't matter. I now knew which gnat I needed to smash. Chapter 2. "Excuse me, pardon me," I said absent-mindedly, moving between the crowds of chirping people. A number of these little birdies, who weren't paying attention or decided not to move, got bumped out of the way. I could hear their little chirping, all offended and alarmed, which then ended after they saw me. I cut an intimidating figure. Yes, I was a big 280-pound boy from Richmond, Indiana, raised on fried tenderloins, biscuits and gravy, and Wix sugar creme pies. But the 280-pound bulk was stretched taut across a 6'2" frame with most of it in the chest, arms, and yes, even the legs with quads as thick as Ronnie Coleman. I never skipped leg day. In fact, I never skipped any workouts. I always admired the bodybuilders like Ronnie, Tony Platz, Mesder, and Arnold. Increased strength because of my supernatural change was no reason to rest on my laurels. Thinking otherwise is what led to the whole damn idea of skinny vampires, especially those that sparkle in the light. Being skinny wasn't a problem in of itself, we're all built different. But choosing to take the easy route in this imitation of life was unacceptable. I'd killed enough vampires in my time to know that many of them relied on the strength they were given after the change. They did nothing to improve themselves physically. It wasn't even considered. Too much effort for too slow a gain. For them, it was all about blood. It was their dessert. It was also the fuel for their blood magic. The real reason behind all those myths about vampires being able to fly, or turn into mist, and all the other crazy things. I'm sure it took time to learn blood magic, but it seemed the easy route. It seemed like everything they did was for their own hedonistic joy. A life of power, but with no responsibility. Perhaps I could understand them better if things were different. If something, anything about them, pointed to a failed attempt at trying to make something out of this damned existence. If in the passage of time, they had lost hope, like I was losing, I could understand that. I felt that. I knew that was real. But that never seemed to be the case for these bastards. They enjoyed their luxuries and their life. They didn't give a rat's ass about the cost that their lifestyle exacted on the lives of others. That every time they fed on a person, they destroyed a life. That they took away someone's family member, perhaps the breadwinner that kept the family afloat, or a beloved child, all because of the taste of fresh blood was so much better than the store-bought. No, they didn't give a shit at all. They were just heathens who won the jackpot. Like a kid born to a well-to-do family, they only cared about their peers, saw none of their unearned advantages, and thought themselves wholly responsible for any good that came their way. And those not in the same status as them, weak, lazy, a drain, unnecessary, they think and yet never realize that they, too, could have been stuck in the muck of life, but they just got lucky. Each of these vampires I've met, each one who feasted on humans for sport, never once considered that their fate could have been the exact same. Even though the reality stared them right in their face, all it took was their sire's whim, the choice to let them die, to drain every drop. That's the only difference. Just luck. Yet they held themselves higher than humans, as if their strength and abilities made them better. They weren't better. They were just lucky. Lucky bastards with no true grit. No wonder the Crimson Templars could take them down. The Hunters didn't have the same strength, but their spirit far outmatched that of most vampires I've met. The Crimson Templars were just unlucky they didn't have the lessons and patience that came with immortality, nor were they afforded the luxury of aging so slowly. Their hunters were just fleeting candles in the winds of time. Weren't we all just chasing after the wind? Regardless, I wasn't a big fan of what I was doing now, using my body to push people out of the way. I had no desire to throw my weight around or harm those who didn't deserve it. But excuse me wasn't cutting it. Not in this gathering of inhibition and poor choices. I couldn't slow down, couldn't stop. I felt pushed and pulled by forces from within. By forces I couldn't control. The ever-growing scent of oranges and vanilla wafted in the air. It fluttered around my nose like an impatient butterfly, leading me toward Gwen. The aroma brought with it a message. Gwen was scared. The realization ignited like coal in the furnace of my belly. Hot blood. The pressure built like a steam engine driving my hips forward. The fury wanted to escape. I knew, buried deep inside, chained away by years of training, was a hunger within the fury. A hunger I had confronted before. It was the same hunger that led me to take the lives of the truly innocent. A monster that could never be unleashed again, or there would be no question whether I was man, monster, or demon. If the fury was a lion, the hunger was its insatiable urge to feed. It would be easy to let the fury strike down someone who dared threaten Gwen, and the hunger would call for me to rip their throat. It'd find it easy to tempt under these conditions. Like a beast, I had cut through the thicket of tightly packed birdies. Their chirping was alarmed at first, and then silent as they broke away from me. Funny how some creatures detected dangers while others became easy prey, lost in their own idyllic actions. Just like this gnat of a man who stood there buzzing at Gwen non-stop. It was hard for me to see the gnat as a man, hard to make out his unique features with the fury messing with my vision. I could feel blood now pulsing through my eyeballs and they blurred. What was in front of me was the oblique outline of a man. It was filled with fuzzy shades of blue where the legs should be. The upper half was the same blur, but with two pinkish things on the side, chest and arms. Above that, a little splotch of pink and then dark, head and hair. The sanguine fury paid tricks with your vision like that. You'd think intense rage would give you better vision. The fury was different. It was a level beyond rage. Instead of magnificent tunnel vision, it blurred everything. It gave you rough outlines you could respond to with great speed and animosity. Everything became simply a target to be shredded. Friend, foe, family. It didn't matter. The fury destroyed. The hunger devoured. I knew the fury all too well. I knew tricks to calm it. I inhaled long, forced out fast through my nostrils. I did this several times until my vision cleared, all the while letting my mind focus on an image from the past. My vision returned. It was a white kid, probably early 20s, with jeans, a t-shirt, and black hair. He had an athletic build. His stance was wide, shoulders back, and head cocked to the side like he was cocky by nature. It appeared the alcohol seeping from his pores added to his unsavory nature. I briefly glimpsed of me kicking his legs out and then crushing his throat crossed my eyes. The fury, while controlled, still wanted to do its job. I grunted, tightening my stomach, and clasped my hands behind my back to keep them from acting out the fury's demands. "I'm sorry, sir. Our other barista got sick and one of our machines is down. We're usually much better about this. But as you can see tonight we're," Gwen said, gesturing to the filled coffee shop in front of her. Her eyes had stopped on me. She almost took a step back, startled at my appearance. She'd never seen me coming. That was the nature of a creature like me, wasn't it? Stalk, ambush, devour. "Listen, you dumb bitch. I got friends waiting. I've been waiting here, for what, half an hour?" the human gnat buzzed. "So, you just got here. The man that's behind you actually ordered 20 minutes ago and we listen. I don't give a fuck about some other useless fucker, the gnat buzzed. His voice grated on me. I had to say something lest I choked him out against the counter right then and there. I would try, as best as I could, to be nice about it, for both of our sakes. "Man, oh man, they are busy. How about going easy on them? These sweethearts will take care of you, I promise. Best place in town," I said. I offered a fake smile at first. I learned that smiling could change how you say things. And in the end, I did genuinely smile. Not because I was speaking to this dumbus, but because this really was a good coffee shop with good folks. I could tell from Gwen's eyes she was appreciative, but she was standing rigid and what movements she made were stiff. "Thanks, Ripley," Gwen said. I nodded at her. My eyes quickly fell on the boy, who was turning around. The boy who I now called Nat. Well, these sweethearts better hurry. The Nat's buzzing trailed off, dumbstruck when he realized he was talking to my chiseled chest and not my face. I was certain of it. His eyes raised up to meet mine. He instinctively tried to take a step back and failed. His heel hit the counter where he had been ceremoniously berating Gwen. With my body only a foot away from him, there was nowhere to go. He was pinned between his bad decision and me, and its consequences. He knew it. You could tell by his expression when he saw me. His nose wrinkled, eyes widened and eyebrows raised, curving at first, and then flattening out. He was afraid. Nat encountered someone who might stand up to him, and that was a bully's biggest fear. They use their power to push around those weaker than them. But if you posed a threat, they only responded in a few ways. 1. They'd back down. 2. They'd put up a big show and then back down. Or 3. They'd try to find some underhanded way to take you down. The outcome was always the same, because in their hearts, they were cowards. Nat's voice sounded weak. He then turned his head, and I followed his gaze. There were 2 other boys that looked around his age, reeking less of alcohol, but still looking for trouble. They were a distance away from us, separated by several people. They were trying to hit on a group of girls, prowling around like boastful hyenas. They stood with wide, unconscientious postures, faux seductive lipping, while at the same time rubbing their hands together as if they'd just found the best cake in the world, and all they wanted to do was dive their faces into it, devour it. The ladies looked entirely disinterested, at best. They kept their circle tight, only making eye contact with each other or their phones. Step by step, they appeared to move away from the hyenas' pestering. Then the hyenas said something, grabbing some of the girls' attention and pointing at Nat. They didn't smile, but the ladies and the hyenas were now looking our way. That was unfortunate. Nat now had an audience. This certainly meant he would regress to step 2 of the bully protocol. What the fuck are you? A stripper? Reject. I mean, look at you with your black leather vest, and weird backward cap, and what's that image on your t-shirt? 2 sticks? No, those aren't just sticks. Those are stakes, aren't they? Stakes drawn like a cross with the word "stake me" under it. Serious. Listen, before you talk to me, how about you take your shitty outfit back to Hot Topic? Nat buzzed dismissively. He shifted his head and smiled at his friends. He seemed self-righteous after his biting remark. It would have been biting, I guess, if it didn't reveal his lack of style. Who doesn't know about a quality Kangol cap? Who didn't know about the treasure trove that was Hot Topic? It didn't matter since he didn't know. He just gave his friends a confident nod. The boys didn't seem to hear what was going on, but they nodded, banged their chest, and smirked. All salutes to their tough friend handling business. I looked at the ladies. Their eyes were on us and suddenly seemed excited. One of them even jumped and started pointing at us. I couldn't hear, without focusing, over the din of noise what they were saying. Were they excited at this possible display of machismo? This false display of being a man? Being a man wasn't just fighting or intimidating people. Yes, you had to protect yourself. Protect those close to you if they are unjustly under attack. But the ladies should have known by his friends that this is not self-defense. Alas, perhaps more. How did the scriptures say it? Chasing after the wind, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I couldn't answer it now. It probably was the rest of the gang getting ready for the show. I needed to get going soon, too. I needed to be done with Nat. Just what could I say to him now, to get him to back down? The truth. I'll just have to tell him the truth. Chapter 3. Listen, brother, just go easy. Show the lady some respect and, fuck that, and fuck you. I'll say whatever I want to this fucking dumb bitch, and there ain't shit you, or anyone else can do about it. So get your polyester, biker looking, sad dominatrix looking ass out of here. I'm sure the village people are looking for their clothes back, Nat said with disgust. That was enough. My hand shot out low and swift as I stepped forward. I eliminated the space between Nat and me in an instant. I kept my back angled to his friends, shielding their eyes from what I had done. They simply kept hooting and hollering like the true hyenas they were, which was good. To them, it probably just looked like their friend had bowed his head down for us to have a man-to-man conversation. We were having a conversation, all right. A very intimate conversation as my hand tightened like a vice around his family jewels. Nat let out a high-pitched sound. He tried to move. I twisted. He stopped moving. Sweetheart, go ahead and cover your ears for me. Nat and I have something to talk about that I'd prefer you not to hear. Gwen looked confused and then slowly covered her ears. I gave her a nod and a closed-mouth smile. Then I lowered my mouth to Nat's ear. Listen here, fuckface. I tried to be civil, tried to give you chances, but clearly, you don't understand common fucking decency. So now I need to speak to you like the little shit you are. So tell me, do I have your fucking attention now? Because if not, I said, my voice trailing off as I twisted and pulled at his gems. Yes, he buzzed. Listen here, you fucking pest. It don't feel so good when someone got power over you, now does it? Does it? I said, tightening my grip. No, lower your fucking voice, you dumb shit, I said, raising my hand up, causing him to go on his tiptoes. Sorry, Nat responded. He was holding onto my shoulders for support. His hands were clammy and wet, and his pulse beat through the roof. Good, I said, lowering my hand. Don't touch me, I said. Sorry, good. Now that I have your attention, listen closely. Being a man ain't about taking advantage of people, or about treating people like shit in front of your friends. If you want to be a real fucking tough guy, learn how to protect those who can't protect themselves. Work a fucking job you hate to take care of someone you love. Whatever you do, be more than an annoying gnat in the ears of everyday people who are just trying to make it through this ridiculously fucking hard life. If you figure that shit out, you might end up being worth something. But right now, you ain't shit. You hear me, Nat? Right now you ain't shit. You ain't going to be shit unless you change. I hear you, he said. He was panting. He couldn't move, turn, or fight back. I literally had him by the balls. Good, now let me tell you what's about to happen here. You're going to apologize to this young lady who you needlessly bullied. You will not cause a scene. You will apologize. Then you will take your friends and leave. If you do not, I will break you. You won't just have to worry about me popping your balls like fresh grapes under a hammer. I'll rip your fucking ears off like lettuce and stuff them down your throat. If your friends fuck around, they'll also find out. Got me. I got you. Oh, and what did you say about my hat and hot topic? They're great. That's what I thought. Now go. Apologize, like you mean it. This is your third and last chance. Don't fuck it up for yourself, I said. I shouldered him off me and let go. The shoulder check pivoted his body. He faced Gwen at the countertop. He immediately apologized. It didn't seem to matter to him that Gwen still had her hands over her ears. He was profusely asking for forgiveness. I motioned Gwen to lower her hands. Tell her again, Nat, I said, with just a tinge of forcefulness. Nat apologized profusely. I figured it would be laced with disdain, and I figured I caught whiffs here and there of it. But what resentment was there was hidden by fear. He didn't want to contend with me. He was a bully, after all. He tried to put on a big show and I nipped that in the bud. I just hoped he wouldn't do something stupid later on. Bullies had overinflated egos. For some bullies, once those egos were punctured, they do whatever they could to reinflate them, even if the very means were dishonorable. In fact, those means were almost always dishonorable. These actions had no true value, no real development of character. Nope, none at all. The bully was the unfortunate builder who built their ego on top of shifting sands. It was no wonder it was always so easy to topple. Instead of inspecting the root problem, they just raced to rebuild again and again, aiming for a bigger and stronger castle, a bigger, stronger failure, just more chasing after the wind. Nat gave one last bluster of apologies. He turned to me, made eye contact briefly and then tried to look anywhere but at me. First, he looked over to my shoulder and then to his friends. He waved the laughing hyenas over. Their expressions hinted at a moment of confusion. It was brief before they returned to their exaggerated confidence. They blew kisses to the girls, and then walked to meet up with Nat, who was already leaving the coffee shop. The hyenas both took a moment to look me over and smirk. Fools, the whole lot of them. They did not know how close they were to death, to me, simply choking them with their entrails. It was what the Fury wanted, to destroy and to devour. Thank you, Gwen said. Her sweet voice drew me from my concentration. I could hear it above the noise of the coffee shop. I was in sync with it, for some unknown reason. No thanks needed. Men shouldn't treat women that way, or anyone for that matter, I said. I chose not to say, unless they are enemies. I appreciate it anyway. Ripley, you're such a gentleman, she said, her voice with a hint of teasing to it. "The Nat gone?" She worked busily behind the counter while talking. That guy was really being a pain. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. One of our crew got really sick, and I sent someone else to help her, so we're down 2 people. Plus I had to go to the basement to get the pumpkin spice. It's out of season. "Oh, here," she said, sitting a to-go coffee cup on the counter, then looked at me. Sorry to hear that. I found it hard for me to look at anything but her eyes. Gwen's eyes were a starburst of amber, gold, and brown with an ivy green outer ring. They seemed to take in so much detail. It was like they were both sharply aware, focused, and yet quietly wild at the same time. I forced myself to look down at the foam cup. "What's this?" "It's a chai latte. Your favorite." "I didn't order it." "I know. You would have thought, had we not been such a rush. You get it every time before one of your shows. You have one tonight, don't you?" "I do. Figured you'd need one, you know." She drew a circle thoughtfully on the countertop. "I'd love to see you guys play one of these nights." Her words seemed to have more meaning behind them, a quiet hint at wanting more than just to see the show. Part of me wanted to encourage it, yet part of me knew better to test this. I went for my wallet, which was attached faithfully to a chain on my belt. "Gwen, you're always welcome, of course. How much will it be?" No, Ripley. It's on me. Now, I couldn't let you do that. I don't think you're going to have an option." She gave me a mischievous smile and then winked, her thick, neat eyebrow at me. I wasn't sure what she meant in that moment as I stared at her. She had black hair that faded to an ash brown and kept a shine. She'd let it fall to her shoulders like a mane, but when she was busy, it was held back in a neat ponytail, like now. Her nose was straight, with just barely an upturn at the tip, and her lips were a blossoming pink and plump. She was attractive. There was no question about it. She must had noticed my confusion, or my staring, and gestured behind me. "See, Ripley, I don't think I'm the only one who wants to see you tonight. It's him." I heard a female voice squeal from behind me. "You're right. Oh my gosh, you're right. It's Rip from Night Sol," said another voice. Several of them did a shrill yell of excitement. I turned around to meet a group of young women. To my surprise, it was the same women who were being hounded by the hyenas earlier. They looked to be college-age kids. College-age kids who looked like they just ran into their favorite star. "Yes. Can I help you, young ladies?" "Oh my gosh, Rip talked to us," said a blonde with hair past her shoulders, wearing a white tank top, tight jeans, and a large belt. I took a moment to look at several of her friends. They were all stereotypically attractive, I supposed. "Rip, we've got to get your signature," said a girl with her hair styled back into a pompadour cut, sides cropped. She wore a black leather bag and pulled out several CDs. "You got CDs? Really? Better than MP3s? Easier to carry than an album. We're going to the show tonight. We even have a marker for you to sign." "Sign mine first," said the blonde. I looked at her and then back to the girl with the pompadour hair, and then back to the blonde, who did not have a CD in her hand. Excuse me, sweetheart, what do you want me to sign?" She tugged at the spot where her tank top straps met the fabric, pulling it enough to reveal a section of her chest. "Right here," she said with a smile, her face flushed. "Oh my." I looked over my shoulder for any type of help from Gwen. She glanced at me briefly, and I swore she smirked at me before continuing on with her tasks. I sighed. "All right, sweetheart, where's the marker?" Chapter 4. All right. "All right, ladies. A man should not be late to his expected meetings," I said. It was especially true when your band manager was a witch. I made a habit of teasing Morrigan, as she was the overly serious member in the group who needed to lighten up, but I did not make a habit of getting on her bad side. One time I pissed her off. Let's just say that when she made cupcakes for the band, I somehow was left with the licorice-flavored one. Disgusting. That was Morrigan after all. She had biting words and knew how to make things personal. Though, I couldn't blame her. She was always the black sheep in her actual family, and when she was kicked out of her coven for dissenting views, well, I think it hardened something in her. Regardless, she wasn't a fan of lateness, especially to rehearsals. I wasn't late yet, but if I didn't get a move on, I would be answering these ladies' questions and signing things. took up more time than I expected. Not that I was annoyed. Fans came first. They cared about our work enough to follow it. These ladies care enough to even get CDs. Which was a fact I would have to tease Morrigan about later on. She thought no one would buy them because it was old tech. I grew up on albums and CDs. As good as MP3s are, nothing beats having something you can hold. Can we at least get a selfie? One of the girls asked. My pleasure. Just give me a second. Flashes aren't the best for me. I pulled out a pair of red-tinted glasses from inside my vest and slid them over my eyes. It was a precautionary move. My dark green contacts hid actual eyes. After my unlucky encounter with the vampire, my natural eyes had changed. They were somewhere between a human and a cat's eye, and a dark red. Moses had gotten me the contacts, so that I didn't have to wear sunglasses at night. After I got used to the pain of poking myself in the eye to get the damn things in, they became my go-to. They worked well and no one could notice, but there was always the chance that my eyes, like a cat, might reflect light in a picture, hence these specialty lenses which would guarantee that wouldn't happen. I'm ready, ladies. The women all gathered around, tightening our already close circle. The woman with the pompadour got arm in arm with me, and leaned in, extending her phone. The blonde, with the arcs of my signature showing over the top of her shirt, placed herself right in front of me, pressing her rear hard into me as she leaned forward and gave a peace sign. The rest of the women found a spot wherever they could. Everyone smiled on Moonrise. 1, 2, 3, said the girl with the pompadour. Moonrise, we all joined in. Several pictures snapped. Great, I've got two, I started, and was then interrupted. Wait, my phone next, said the blonde. Her comment was then echoed by several of the other women. All right. Several pictures later, I broke free from the group of women. They were more like a pride of lions than anything. In all the fights I had, battles I've been in over the years, I've never felt so stuck. They only let me go because I told them they could get more pictures at the show, which I was running late for. It was my last resort to get out of there. A few pictures shouldn't take so long, but they were insistent that we do different poses for each of their pixogram, or Insta-Flash accounting, or whatever it's called. My phone buzzed during their makeshift photo shoot. It was Morrigan, I was sure. Great. The coffee shop was even louder now. I had never seen so many people stuffed into such a small space, outside of a mosh pit. Despite my mass, even I struggled to get past people. I had to snake my way through even denser crowds to get to my guitar. Worst of all, I was halfway through my chai latte. Damn, could this get any worse? I shook my head at the thought. I got to my little corner where people were pressed up against the coffee table. My classical guitar, composed of a dark creamy Adirondack wood with a hint of red, nylon strings stretched over its top, and an electric pickup, so that I could play it with an amp, stood against the wall like a majestic sentry. She was a beauty I had with me for some years. I tucked her into my soft case gig bag, zipped it up, and placed it over my shoulder. I made my way out through the crowds again. The urge to pee kicked in. I looked to the bathrooms. People stood, packed like sardines, facing the bathroom in a line that didn't move. That was until self-preservation forced several people to scatter. One of these fools stumbled out of the bathroom, retched, and then puked. The lumpy spray caught the people closest to him, layering them in all types of brown gunk, peppered by the stench of stomach acid and alcohol. Though those closest got the chunks, those right afterwards still got hit with a noxious spray. They screamed the most. Everyone else scrambled backward. Well, damn it, it got worse. I did not want to wait in line. I had no interest in sidestepping puke, and, considering what I just saw, the restroom might be out of service. It would be best to find a bathroom someplace else, come back when things were less crowded. I wanted to say goodbye to Gwen, but she was busy. She was making her way through the crowds with mop overhead like a majestic staff. Gwen, the mage of the coffee shop, comes to save them all. It was hard not to smile at the thought. She should really get paid more. I made my way out of the main door. The night air greeted me like a wet, hot lover, hugging me tightly and breathing down my neck after I'd just finished a burpee workout. The humidity nearly choked me. Though it was hot in the coffee shop, this moist hot air was an entirely different beast. It was a sticky and warm heat, so hot in fact that there wasn't even any puddles left on the street. Had I not watched it rain, I would have been hard-pressed to believe that it had. My phone buzzed again. I got it out my back pocket and flipped it open. "You're late. Hurry up." What? I checked my time. I was running late, sure, but I wasn't late. I scrolled down to see several messages. Oh shit, they're starting the show early because of the crowds. Damn it. I jogged in the show's direction but was stopped by the warnings sent by my bladder. If I went much further, being late to the show would be the least of my worries. "I guess an alley it'll be then," I said, turning into the alley. I came upon several pigeons feasting on a dropped carton of fries with ketchup. The pigeons cooed several times, annoyed, before flapping their wings and taking flight. "Sorry guys," I said, as I stepped over the food. I kept my eyes open for anything else that would be worse to step in. Given the smell of urine and whatever else was in the dumpsters I passed by, the red brick walls were lined with small dumpsters and metal trash cans, and the ivy that was common to this city. I stopped several paces past the dumpsters and a pile of broken wooden pallets. Finding one that was still in good condition, I placed my guitar gig bag down on top. Several more paces away, I took care of business against the wall. Midstream I heard footsteps, and could smell that same familiar stink of onions and alcohol. "EEI, Mr. Hot Topic, you and I got to do a little talking after that stunt back in the coffee shop. And I don't mean talking about casting you as a Vic Diesel's stunt double," Ivy yelled Nat as he approached, the two hyenas laughing behind him. "Damn it, I don't have time for this shit." Chapter 5. I wasn't a fan of being caught with my pants down, but here we were, with me in midstream and Nat buzzing at me. It'd be a moment before I was done. I was, after all, a big boy that could carry a lot of liquid. Though Nat approached, I noticed his pack stayed back. I doubted they wanted to get involved themselves. But watch. Most definitely. My phone buzzed again. I continued to take care of business with one hand, and grabbed the phone with the other, completely ignoring Nat's taunts as he approached. I read the message. "Are you dead, dying, or do you want me to make you dead? If it's the latter, I can make sure it's a slow process before you get there. I hope you like spiders and licorice, Ripley." "Shit," I muttered. "Oh yeah. You're right to be scared. Punk me in the coffee shop in front of my boys. I'm going to have to make you pay now," Nat said. I quirked my eyebrow at Nat, whose presence was of note more value than his namesake. I returned my attention to the real threat, Morrigan's message. She knew I hated spiders, like any reasonable person, and licorice, that was just demon candy. I frantically punched in a response via the number pad, while still peeing. Maybe one day I'll upgrade to one of those dumb phones everyone loves so much. "Hey, I'm talking to you," Nat buzzed angrily. I kept typing my message to Morrigan, held up. "Be there soon. Sorry, no one's going to get here in time to save you from this ass whipping," Nat buzzed again. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, then myself into my pants, and did some mental calculations. If I could get this over with quickly, I could run there and tell Morrigan I didn't know about the change. She'd give me crap about it, but she would only be partially angry. I grabbed a hand sanitizer from my pants pocket, a gift Azura got for me from Bath and Body Works. I turned to Nat, looked him over, and then whispered loudly, "Listen, brother, I don't quite have the time for this. There's someone much scarier than you that's angry with me right now, but I get it. You need to prove your street cred to these fools, right? Fine, get a couple of punches in. I'll make it look great for you. You then get out of here." "Alright." I put the sanitizer back in my pocket and stowed away my glasses. Nat looked confused for a moment, then his confusion turned into rage. "Fuck you," he yelled and came at me swinging. I covered my chin and any vital areas. I allowed him to get several shots to my body, and even a few to the side of my head. He had a smidge of power in his shots, but no form or real training. It didn't matter. I went along with it, faking sounds of pain and distress. "See bitch, I own you. I fucking own you. I'm the man," Nat buzzed gleefully as I waited boredly for this to be over. How long was this going to take? Seriously, I suddenly felt bad for his girlfriends, and very uncomfortable. "Please, go away. No more, no more." I got out, sounding more like a character from Monty Python than a person in actual distress. But I held my hands up, crumpled my body up, and did my best imitation of cowering. I wasn't a fan of just letting someone beat on me. It would have hurt my pride if his attacks didn't seem like a kid brother trying to fight you for the last smoria. In the background, the hyenas were hooting and hollering to the max, sending all types of attaboys to Nat. They were here for the show, like I thought. I sighed at the mundanity of it all. "I told you guys, I'm the fucking goat," he said over his shoulder. Cheers met his pronouncement. "Now you know, dumb bitch." He then faked an attack. There was a delay in my acting like I was ducking, because I didn't feel the need, and thus forgot. Nat turned away, probably wishing he got more of a rise out of me from his last action. It seemed like it angered him a little more. He stopped in front of my guitar, turned, looked at me and smiled. "Please no," I said. That time I wasn't faking. That was my favorite guitar. It was my gift from Moses. When I first joined SOL, Nat didn't listen to my request. Instead, he slammed his foot into it multiple times. The third time something cracked. The fifth time something snapped and the bag folded over his foot. My blood ran hot like boiling fruit that would scald and stick to anything it touched. My eyes blurred several times as I fought back a primal urge to slaughter Nat. I had not felt the fury tug at me so strong in years. It was nearly overwhelming. "You should go away, Nat. You should go. Right now. Please, go away. Fast, very fast. Fast now. Run," I said with an outward calm as I repressed an internal storm. "I'll go alright. I'll say hi to that dumbass barista. What's her name? Gwen?" Nat spit at the ground. "No, at my guitar case. How you like that?" My vision blurred in and out. I forced my eyes shut, tears running from my cheek as I tried to hold the fury at bay. "Are you crying? Don't worry. I'll take good care of her. She'll be my little slut. I mean those lips, those knockers, and eyes. It'll be great to see her looking up to me as she sucks, you fool." My voice came out in a growl, sounding neither human nor beast, but something else altogether, silencing the Nat and his hyenas. The only sound audible at the moment was the buzz of my phone, but that would have to wait now. The fury was here, and it only cared about destruction. You had your chances, so many chances to leave well enough alone. Now you have but one choice, to pray, because now, you will know, firsthand, that death comes for us all under the night's sun. I lunged. Chapter 6. Nat stepped back instinctually, like his body sensed danger. His eyes were locked on mine, widening in fear. He didn't see the subtle slip of the guitar case. I did. Folded in half, its structure gone, the case couldn't stand against the wall. It slid down and over the pallet, a consequence of Nat's poor decision. Ironically, the guitar exacted its revenge as a result of his own actions. Its body jutted haphazardly into the walkway, catching the back of his heel and tripping him. Nat grasped it open air as his feet worked double time to regain balance. With feet still entangled by the case, he continued to stumble. His body turned and twisted until his back slammed against the brick wall, finally stopping his descent. But that wouldn't save him. It would not save him from the consequences of his actions. It would not stop the fury. I appeared in front of him, moved by feet that made no sound against the dingy asphalt of our enclosed arena. Regaining his composure, Nat looked up, eyes wide, surprised at my sudden appearance. He reminded me of a gazelle surprised by the lion lurking in the bushes, wanting to run but not even sure of where to go. I whipped a backhand at his chest, flipping my palm over at the last moment to strike his sternum with the heel of my hand. I felt the compression of his chest cavity and followed through, turning the chop all the way over into a full-on smack that would leave him red come morning. I'm sure he let out a burst of air as he doubled over, but I couldn't hear it. The sound of the chop smack overpowered his sudden exhale, and reverberated off the brick walls, filling up the alley like a disrespectful cheering section. Nat slid down the wall. I stopped him, my hand gripping his shirt. I pulled him back to a stand with his back pinned to the wall. I promptly smacked him across the face. Once, twice, thrice. I couldn't help but laugh darkly. "You a tough guy, huh? You a macho man, right?" I said. I whipped a hand across his face, knocking spittle out of his mouth. "Come on, where's your talk now? Where's your fucking flair? I backhanded him. I could feel my knuckles hitting his cheek and teeth. Nat tried to resist. I shoved him back with one arm, knocking his head against the wall, his insolence fueling the fury. "You're the man, huh? Ain't that right, brother? 'Cause you can pick on the weak. You the goat because you can jump me while I'm taking a piss, huh? Well, that's fine. You can be the goat, because I'm a fucking savage. I'll kill ya, butcher you right here. I'll rip out your fucking heart and make a steak of it. I'll turn your insides into offal and feed you a humble pie. Shit, I'll peel your skin and use it to wipe my hairy red ass. No charming needed, fun face." I smacked him twice, giving him the ass whipping his father clearly didn't deliver. His body went momentarily limp, and I had to pin him there by my left hand, while fighting to stop my vision from blurring. The fury was trying to take me away. I was at the cusp of its rapture, smacking him again, his body going limp again. Heavy, racing footfalls grabbed my attention. The hyenas were wrong to enter my space. Here, right now, was my domain and I was its king. My lips curled into a snarl as my body responded in a smooth, unhurried action. I switched to holding up Nat with my right hand. I pivoted my back to the running footsteps, cutting in closer to Nat with the movement. I stretched my left arm out at the last moment. The first hyena ran neck first into my forearm. With his neck caught, and feet still moving forward, he spun into the air around my arm like a cheap hula hoop, only making a half circle before falling to the ground like the trash he was. The other set of footsteps were inbound. Letting Nat go, I spun to my right, grabbed the lid of the steel trash can, and charged towards the hyena. I held the trash can like a small buckler shield, with one hand in the grip, and the other backing it. I charged him with the shield, hitting his chest hard and knocking him into the dumpster's edge. He must have hit his spine against the corner because he went down immediately, screeching in pain. His name was now Screechy to me. I went to hit him with the trash can lid, but it was stuck around my thick hand. I gave Screechy a quick kick to the ribs. He now frantically reached at both his side and back in pain, yelling and crying even louder than before. "You chose this. Keep your crying to yourself." My leg moved of its own volition, kicking him squarely in the temples. His screeching and moving about stopped, replaced by the sound of snoring. "Get out of here. I'll hold him," said a grunting voice. I spun around. Hyena number 1 was on his feet again. He wielded a broken pallet in his hand and was running to me. Just behind him, I could see Nat. Nat leaned hard on the wall, forcing himself to take uneven steps, falling twice before being able to try again. In a different circumstance, I would feel bad for Nat, the wounded warrior trying to make his way out to fight another day. The sacrifice of a friend for his sake. Touching, if I weren't disgusted. Touching, if he were an innocent. But Nat was not innocent. He was a shitty punk, who will let his friends take the ass-whipping he rightfully deserved. Cowardice upon cowardice. A man not taking responsibility. I could not suffer this anymore. Disgust and rage fueled me as the fury pounded in my temples. I dashed forward. Out of my way, I yelled at Hyena. Hyena had the pallet raised to attack. His eyes grew wide at my movement and placed it in front of himself, bracing. I kept running. Something odd happened. My running slowed, but not my effort. I was pushing my muscles hard but to no avail. It felt like I was running into the wind while wearing a parachute, or that I was cutting my way through something that was a quarter as dense as water. Whatever it was, I was slow. But it wasn't just me. Nat and Hyena both moved at a slowed rate. Even the sound of my footsteps pounding on asphalt seemed like a long, drawn-out bass beat over an expanse of time. My vision flickered. It felt like grit had gotten under my contacts. I blinked several times to clear it. After the last blink, my vision had changed. Hyena's body was riddled with a vibrant red root system. It was laid over the top of him, but was inside his body, at different depths, and all pulsating. The shades of red were darker at different locations, but it all was lit up like a pulsating neon sign to me. I looked to Nat, my eyes narrowed. I could see the same branching work of vines. They too were pulsating, red, and yet, somehow different from Hyena's beating network, yet the same. It was like reading cursive handwriting. It's all the same, but everyone's signature is just slightly different. But instead of it being looping lines of red ink, it was branching lines of blood. Was I looking at their veins? Is this some new vampiric skill? The fuck is this? I said to myself. The thought faded away quickly as my concentration was broken. It was broken by the recognition that all I was doing now was watching Nat flee in slow motion, and the Fury could not have that. My eyes shifted back to Hyena. I could see the fear in his eyes. He wanted to run too, but loyalty kept him there. Perhaps there was one redeemable bastard amongst this group. I felt my heart soften. In this slowed moment, I could measure where to place my next attack. Glad I did. As my time reverted to normal, I felt supercharged, like a rubber band that had been pulled back to its brink and then let go. Still running forward, I jumped into the air and kicked with both legs into the broken pallet Hyena was holding. The remains of the pallet snapped across his face and he went flying. I fell onto my side, smacking my arm out to disperse the energy from the fall. It was a little trick Sarah taught us. She truly was dangerous with that jujitsu and judo stuff. She always turned me into a pretzel, but at this moment, with my softened landing, I was glad for her lessons. I got to my feet. Hyena was several feet away. I walked past him. I could see he was breathing, but out cold. I could not, however, see the blood system in his body anymore. I looked to Nat, who was still trying to escape and couldn't see his either. It didn't matter. I had something more serious to handle. Nat. I pulled Nat back by the shoulder, spinning him to face me. Where the fuck do you think you're going? I growled. He threw a wide hook at my face. I charged in, blocked the attack, and bashed the center of his face with the top of my forehead. Nat let out a grunt of pain, his hand shooting to his face defensively. "UG, my nose," he said. He moved his hand, inspecting it. It was covered in blood. Nat let out a yell and started throwing a series of hooks. I didn't evade. I simply blocked them like a person waving away a fruit fly. He lost steam. His looping punches kept getting lower and lower as fatigue wore down his muscles. The alcohol he had consumed was not his friend at this point. Dehydrated certainly and burning through what little energy he had, he was wearing down. Soon his strikes were to my gut. I didn't even block those. They were nothing more than mild annoyances. Huffing and puffing, Nat turned away to run. I grabbed him by the shoulders and slammed against the wall. "Going to run away? Leave your friends here to die on your behalf. Is that what a man does? Start a fight and let his friends die in his place?" I said, my voice low and calm, the fury subsiding at this poor show. He tried to wiggle free one more time. I shook my head, not releasing my grip. "I told you what I would do to you, didn't I?" "What?" "I told you. Now you have forced my hand, brother." "What?" I let one of his shoulders go and gestured to the space around us. "Do you hear that?" "What?" "Just fucking let me go, you crazy bastard." SHHHH. Listen, it's the sounds of the night. The breeze through this shitty alley kicking up plastic bags and papers, the pigeons cooing angrily because we disturbed their meal, and the sounds of other people, far off, enjoying their night. Can you hear it? I hear it. Good brother, I said, putting my hand back on his shoulder, looking at him. Good. I wanted you to know what life sounded like one more time. What the foire? Nat didn't have a chance to respond. I interrupted him with a double strike to his ears, destroying his balance and dropping him to his knees. I pulled him back up to a stand, and let my hands loop to his ears. At first, my hands were gentle on his ears like a lion mother, grabbing up her cub by the scruff of its neck. Then, slowly, my fingers clapped down like a maw on his ears, bringing its meat into my palms. I pulled, feeling tension from his ears as they begged to remain in place. I pulled them to their maximum extension. Nat flapped his little arms at me, scraping and nailing at my hands and forearms to free his ears. He yelled, I'm sure, but it all sounded like buzzing to me. I pulled just a little more and twisted, pulled, twisted, pulled, twisted, ripping, buzzing, pulled, more ripping, twisted, more buzzing, pulled and twisted. Now nothing but loud buzzing. 2 pieces of pink flesh lay in the palm of my hands like lettuce. So much buzzing, too much buzzing. Make the buzzing stop. Hands moving out of my control. I pushed the 2 pieces down his throat, or so I assumed. Everything was blurry, so very blurry. Extra thank you for reading this sample of Sons of Lilith, a Fury Tale. New Moon Sparkles. If you'd like to read the full book before it's released, consider joining my ARC, Advanced Review Copy, team. As a member, you'll get early access and can share your thoughts or a quick review once it's live. Ballpoint pen backhand index finger pointing right. Join the ARC team here, or, if you're in the mood for a romantasy set centuries earlier in the same world, check out Covert Legacy, Blood and Bonds 2 Hearts. In this tale, Alexander Nightkill faces deadly creatures of the night, until a mysterious stranger changes everything. Covert Legacy offers a journey of danger, slow burn romance, and monster hunting in a world steeped in ancient secrets and magic. Man Vampire Sparkles backhand index finger pointing right. Discover Covert Legacy here.